Welcome to another episode of ENN. My name is Lupe, and this is Exiles Network News. It is that weekly entertainment news podcast where your very own film exiles take on the most interesting topics and discuss them in exiles fashion. That means we keep it the realest. We keep it 100 because what has already been exiled cannot be canceled. We usually have Paul on. It's, usually a triumvirate, usually a trinity, but today it's just Christian and I. So, Christian, welcome.
We're the dynamic duo, man. Hey, I'm gonna
Yes,
miss
we
Paul,
are.
but we could do it. We could do it.
Yeah,
I hope
yeah.
this is a big
I'm
week,
ready.
man.
Yep, it is a big week, and we're going to talk about that. All right. So, this is ENN number 15. We've been at it for 15 weeks.
Woohoo!
That sounds surreal.
Pop open the champagne.
For real. Wow. That's amazing. So let's tell our audience what we have for them today. This is the rundown. The Lego franchise is working on a deal with Paramount Pictures and WB may be ceding rights. It's Star Wars Episode 9 week, and reactions have come in, and we're going to talk about our reactions to the reactions. Then in our coming soon section, we're going to talk about three major trailers that hit this past week. The Top Gun Maverick trailer, The Woman in the Window trailer, and Tenet. So without further ado, let's get right into the business. So Lego, the animated franchise, has been under the stewardship of WB. We've had the Lego movie, the Lego Batman movie, the Lego Ninjago movie. We've had the Lego movie 2, and I think there were a couple planned out. However, in news that hit me out of left field, we hear that Universal is now leading a pack of several studios who are trying to sign the Lego IP under their studio banner. So it's possible that it could switch from WB to another studio. But the question that I have for you, Kristen, and thing that we should really, get to discussing is, first off, how much of a surprise is this to you, and what do you think about the Lego franchise, and why should it even change studios? This is also strange. Go ahead and tell us what you think of this news.
You're 100% right. This news, when you sent me this, I was totally shocked at this one. We try to keep an eye on what's going on Twitter and all the different movie news that comes out, whether it's Deadline and it's the trades or whether it's just rumor mill. And this was weird, man. This came out of nowhere. Now, I could be wrong, but I think there is still a teeny tiny window for Warner Brothers to green light another movie, and then they could keep the rights. But it doesn't look like they're going to do that. That apparently, the rumor is that they're not going to green light another movie. And the Lego franchise is in a funky place. Now, I don't know about you, but I found the original Lego movie to be highly entertaining. It was stupid. My IQ definitely went backwards when I watched the movie, but it was highly entertaining with a great vocal cast with Will Arnett and it had Elizabeth Banks and it just, and Chris Pratt, just a wonderful vocal cast. And I thought it was funny, and it had the catchy "Everything Is Awesome" song, and it was cool, and it was hip, and it just was a happy thing. And I saw a lot of kids in the theater with their parents, and I thought it was a nice thing. And they dropped all these cameos in with like the Star Wars characters, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the Lego franchise has been has also been in video games as well. So this kind of brought everything together, and now we had it on the big screen. But it was also kind of like the same joke that was carried over for a 2-hour movie. And I didn't see the Ninjago movie until it was on digital later on, and it was the same thing. I was like, okay, funny movie, but kind of the same thing, right?
Mhm.
And then the Lego Batman movie, I found that to be fantastic. I thought the Lego, you know, and we got all a bunch of memes out of it, like the nope, 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 nope. You know, we got that whole meme out of it. And Will Arnett was great. And I thought Zach Galifianakis did a wonderful job as the Joker. And it was really cool. And I want to, by the way, real quick, say at the end of all those movies, especially Lego Movie 1, the way they brought it home with how it was really the kid that had a tough relationship with his father, and Lord Business was really his dad, and the fortress was really his father's red tie, and it was all in the kid's imagination. And I thought those were really nice family moments that brought us all back to being children.
Mhm.
Then we got Lego Movie 2, and I felt like everything just kind of, you know, it sputtered out, and it just felt very tired, and the jokes felt like they were very tired and old, and it wasn't as exciting anymore and fresh. So you're right. I think they had a bunch of stuff that was in development. So this is really weird. And
Mhm.
the thing I guess that worries me is I believe that the best parts of the franchise are Lego Batman, the fact that Channing Tatum was kind of like a player Superman, right? Like he was like, "Hey girl, what's up?" Yo, you know, like doing stuff like that. And if these rights go to another studio, I think they have to create new characters. I don't think they can keep the characters that were created like Wildstyle and Emmett. I believe that's the case. So
Yeah.
this leaves the franchise in a really funky place. And can they even build on it? Because I felt like the last one was very tired.
Okay. I mean, I kind of agree with you. I thought that the first Lego movie was absolutely fantastic. Came out of left field and blew me away. Like I was like, how is this gonna work? Like,
Right?
Legos, it's gonna be like super weird. And it just
It was
worked.
funny. It was
But
funny.
yeah, it really was. But then after that, I wouldn't say the movies have been bad, but as you said, that novelty of seeing Lego figures, animated, it kind of wears thin a little bit. And then they have to prove themselves in terms of being great films. And it's been a mixed bag. I haven't hated any of them, but I can't say I've absolutely loved any of them after the first Lego movie. The box office totals are as follows. The first Lego movie made $468 million. Then the Lego Batman movie followed that with 312 million US dollars. Then the Lego Ninjago movie made only 123.1 million. Then the Lego movie 2 made 191 million. So we can see, like a general sharp decline in the revenue that the franchise was bringing in. And when you look at animated movies, I mean, they bring in a lot of money. These are
Mm-hmm.
potential billion-dollar franchises. So, in
Definitely.
terms of the financial side, I can see why WB is lukewarm on this. However, my question is this: is that what does Paramount think they're going to do with it?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I mean,
Like,
oh,
I,
go
I
ahead.
think I think the movies are good so far. I mean, at least they're not horrible.
No,
So
no, they're
what are
definitely
you?
not.
Yeah, so what are you gonna do? I'm a bit confused. I think the problem with the franchise, if you can call it a problem, is that it is Lego figures, and that novelty wears thin real fast.
Sure.
I think that's just it. So whether you move it to Universal or you move it to Disney or you move it to Venus or Pluto, it's still the same. It's still the same problem. What do you think that Universal could do to, I don't know, change things a little bit?
Mm. Well, you know, Warner Brothers they were lucky because they had access to all their DC characters, right? So
Mhm.
when they decided to do this, even though they created Emmett and they created Wild Style and there were a couple of others that were brand new characters, they could lean heavily into Lego Batman and they can lean heavily into everybody else. They even had Shaquille O'Neal, which I thought was funny. You know, they put him in there and they had Godzilla and stuff. So what this could be, maybe I'm wrong, but I just want to throw it out there. This could be something else that speaks to what's happening in the industry in general, where everybody is trying to gobble up content,
Mm.
Everyone's trying to gobble up content, whether they're trying to gobble it up for direct to consumer or whatever. And
Mhm.
everyone's looking for franchises, especially because Disney just recently purchased 21st Century Fox, and they own a truly disgusting amount of content.
Mm.
And even if that company were to get broken up, they're going to keep a lot of that content in their library. And in order to fight that, in order to be another company that you can create new content based on a franchise, hopefully get something that could give you $500 million, you got to gobble this stuff up.
Mm.
Maybe Universal can do something with their, Universal Studios has access to all the old monster stuff. They got vampire things.
Mhm.
They obviously have Jurassic Park.
Mhm.
Is that something that they could potentially tap into in the future? Because they're not going to be able to use the DC characters. You know that. But
Mhm.
I mean, could they potentially tap into Marvel? Because Universal has an okay relationship with Marvel right now. So
Mhm.
is that something they could do? That's the only thing I could think of. You don't buy something like that unless you think you got a franchise on your hands,
Very
right?
true. Unless you have a concrete plan, it's just I'm not seeing it from my vantage point. I think
Yeah.
it's really sad for WB because WB is one of the biggest, if not like the second biggest studio in
Yeah.
Wood
Yeah.
with a really illustrious heritage and pedigree, and they don't seem to have any animation franchises or success stories that they can really hang their hat on. And I think that's a big void in their portfolio of films. They do a lot of adult content very well, but um, on the movie side, their animation division is just not pulling its weight. Maybe some heads need to roll, and some new, fresh blood needs to come in and bring some new ideas. But it's going to be very interesting to see how it all plays out. I hope that it stays at WB because I do like what they do with the superhero characters of DC and Lego. I just think they may need to set their expectations a little bit lower, although it's already pretty much rock bottom.
Yeah, I think you just brought up a good point. I mean, the first one makes over $400 million, and then the second, I know there were a couple movies in between, but then the second one barely scratches 200 million.
Yeah.
You got to start thinking that they got to refresh this somehow, right?
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
you can't just keep doing it and
You
expecting to
can't
get a
just
different result. Yep.
Yep. Well, we'll see what the future holds for the Lego franchise, and we will keep you guys updated on the preceding events. Well, now for the main event. That was just a warm up. All right. That was just a warm up. I hope you're stretched. I hope you took your energy drink and you're ready because it's Star Wars week and we're going to talk about Star Wars. And whenever you talk about Star Wars these days, it's always explosive, it's always controversial, it's always contentious. And the episode 9 reactions have come in. My expectation has been met
Hmm.
in terms of the film being controversial. I think J.J. Abrams was brought in to, you know, ease the waters and, keep the boat going along smoothly. But my goodness, it's been a battleground out in film Twitter, on social media, amongst fans and critics. So, in a shocking turn of events, oh, if you look on the critical aggregator sites.
Hmm.
Rotten Tomatoes Star Wars Episode 9 has a 57%, which is rotten on their site. Metacritic, it has a 53, which equals a mixed negative rating. So basically, it's really pretty much critics versus fans. The
Hmm.
Last Jedi fans versus The Force Awakens fans. Rian Johnson versus JJ. Christian, what do you think of this divide? And were you expecting this? And who is to blame, if there's anyone to blame? What do you just think of this whole situation?
You know what? As a Star Wars fan, and a Star Wars fan for a long time, as a lover of The Last Jedi, as someone who understands why Last Jedi was so divisive, it doesn't matter if I love it. I do get it. Just because I love it doesn't mean I don't see the other side. I've spoken with enough of my fellow Star Wars fans. The bottom line of it to me is that it's very sad. The fandom has been divided since the prequel era, and they hated George Lucas ever since he introduced midichlorians, and it was one of the reasons he sold. One of the reasons he sold
Yeah,
and backed out is he said, "Dude,"
yeah.
he said, "I've had enough. You know what I'm saying? Yeah." He just was. I've had enough at this point. The fandom it is so hard to please.
Look, like let's call a spade a spade. Star Wars has the most toxic and worst fandom. That's the facts.
I'm hesitant to say it because I'm part of it, but
Well,
I have trouble arguing with you. You know what I mean? Like I have trouble arguing that because
I mean, which franchise literally made its creator sell it because he got so much hate?
it's the only one. It's the only one, and it's unbelievable that it had to happen this way. It's sad, and I'll repeat what I said before. I'm very upset about it. I'm really sad about it because there really is no fandom out there that eats itself alive the way Star Wars fandom does. And we attack one another, we get angry at each other, we call each other names. I try not to do that. I really do. I'm being honest. I've gotten involved in a lot of these arguments, but it's been lobbed at me, and I've watched them do it left and right. And the vitriol has only gotten worse with the advent of social media. It's only made it worse. So that's number one. Number two, am I shocked? No, not at all. And I'm not shocked for multiple reasons. I'm not shocked because of what you and I just talked about, because of the toxicity in the Star Wars fan base and the way it's been since the very beginning. So that doesn't surprise me. And the ownership and entitlement that people have over something that they started watching probably when they were 10 years old, and now they're 40. So for 30 years, 40 years, they've had this thing, and they think that they want to see it a certain way. Another reason I'm not too surprised by this is because Last Jedi was as divisive as it was. It was such a divisive movie. I didn't think that the reviews for this could go anywhere except mixed. I didn't think there was any way that the fans could be any way but mixed on this, because people who love The Last Jedi defend it wholeheartedly, and people that hate it tell people like me that I'm stupid for liking that movie, that we're idiotic for liking that movie. We're not real fans because we like that movie. So now for the difference has always been that people like me have had the press on our side, right? Because it seems like most of the reviewers online loved The Last Jedi and the new direction it took, and the fact that it took risks and it was more cerebral and made us question our fandom and made us question the Force and question the Jedi and things of that nature. And guess what? J.J. Abrams jumps in and does exactly what you just said. He goes and gets nostalgic, and he brings us back, and he blows everything away from The Last Jedi. Apparently, I haven't seen the movie. I'm going to see it in 3 days, but that's what I'm reading about online. And now guess what? Now we have division again, because everybody that loved Last Jedi is now pissed off. And the people that hated Last Jedi are saying, see, I'm vindicated. So I'm not really surprised at this, man. I'm just saddened. And the final thing I'll say to answer your third part of your question, who's to blame? I think it's twofold. I think it's Disney, number one, and it's the fandom, number two. And I think and I apologize for going off on a tangent, but I think it's...
No, this is fine. Go ahead.
I think it's Disney because it's clear to me that they didn't necessarily have a complete plan. And Kathleen Kennedy, who has had success, by the way, not only before Star Wars, but with Star Wars. She's had success with Star Wars as well. But I think under her leadership, there's been a bit of a scattershot, shotgun approach to things, and they've gotten very reactionary. And instead of listening to maybe what the fandom wanted, even if I disagree with what the fandom wanted, because all they wanted was a little bit more nostalgia, they decided to really rock the boat when they got Rian Johnson. And the second part of it, the reason that the fandom is partly to blame is because of what we've done to not only one another, but what we've done to the actors, the actresses, and the people that have been part of this. What we did to Rian Johnson, who became a snarky kind of jerk after all this, but I don't blame him. I don't blame him, because they attacked him and said, "You suck. You made the worst movie in the world. I hate you. I hope you die." So, dude, I think there's more than enough blame to go around here. And maybe I'm part of it too. But the bottom line is, before we talk about this more, I'll toss it back to you, and you and I can have more of a discussion about this. I'm just saddened by this because I love this franchise. I adore it. And watching the fandom rip itself apart like this, no one blames themselves. They all blame the other person. It's either Disney's fault, or it's that guy's fault, or it's that guy's fault for hating Last Jedi, or that guy's fault for liking Last Jedi. Nobody looks inward and says, maybe we are just a little bit of the problem. We just blame everybody else, and it just makes me sad.
I can imagine your pain as a lifelong Star Wars fan, fully invested in the world, fully invested in the stories, and having everything play out this way. And it's funny that, there's this famous quote from George Lucas. He said something about
Hmm.
Star Wars is like poetry that, rhymes, over and over again. And
Hmm.
it seems like this fan discontent, this malcontent, this, divisiveness, it seems to reverberate through time. It
Hmm.
seems, to be something that has happened before and it's happening again. And will it happen again in the future? It's really sad. I can relate as a DC fan to the way this whole saga has gone because I look at it much like the way that Zack Snyder's Superman saga was
Hmm.
was
Hmm.
just turned this way and that in the wind due to
Hmm.
heavy fan criticism. You know, the the
There's a
the
lot of
thing about
parallels.
yeah, definitely there are definite parallels. The thing
Yeah.
about these situations is that there is nothing wrong in people disliking a movie
No,
or
absolutely.
nothing wrong in that. Nobody's saying that people should you know be victims of groupthink and be mind slaves and everybody just follow lock and step with
Hmm.
whatever the main thrust of opinion is. But what happened with Zack Snyder's Batman v Superman and with the Last Jedi is that there was this incessant, unrelenting, obsessive, maniacal
Hmm.
attack on the material. It wasn't good enough to say, I don't like this, whatever, I'm moving on. People had to make videos on it, people had to insult creators, people had to attack studios, mount hate campaigns, talk about it for months and months and bully, berate the whole 9 yards. I'll never forget when Batman v Superman came out for an entire year. I mean, at the end of the year, people were still making, top 10 lists saying that Batman v Superman is like the worst movie of the year. Like,
Right. Right.
what?
Right.
Like,
We still see that to this day. I just
yeah,
sent you guys a tweet the other day where some
yeah,
guy said, "We're how many years removed from that movie?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's the worst comic book movie of the decade." What is
yeah.
wrong with you're still harping on this? Incredible, incredible. Sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely, like as you said, incredible. Just you just can't wrap your mind around it, and that's why the studio decided to retcon everything and just one thing that we said about Justice League, people who are fans of the DCU, is that if you watch
Hmm.
Justice League, it's like a somebody looked at a list of what people hated about Batman v Superman and Zack Snyder
Yes.
movies and just started checking off the boxes. It should be more
Hmm.
colorful. There should be more smiles. It should be less complex. It should be more
Hmm.
straightforward. The runtime should like every single thing. And I have heard, I haven't yet seen, but I've heard that that's the exact same thing that has happened with Star Wars Episode 9. I
Hmm.
mean, the parallels are just, and for me, regardless of the quality of the movie, that's a very sad thing. That
Yes.
is terrible. And I'm not, I'm not one of the people who hated The Last Jedi so much, and I don't understand what they're going through. I can't claim to. But no matter what side I am on, I don't see how pandering is something that anyone will accept or take kindly to or really be happy about. Even with
Hmm.
people may say, "Oh no, but look at you, you want the Snyder cut, and wouldn't you like it if the Justice League movies come and but they do this?" No, I've actually said that I don't want Zack Snyder to direct any more DC movies.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
actually don't. I actually do not want it. I actually think that at
Hmm.
this point, that bridge has been burned. I
Yeah.
think that he deserves better than the treatment that he got. I think that if they do, it will be pandering. If we get these movies, it will be another course correction
Hmm.
just because of the hate that they got. And I don't like pandering. I like art and I like creativity to come from a place of real honesty,
Hmm.
an honest voice expressing itself through creative mediums. That's
Hmm.
what art is. And I'm so disappointed in J.J. Abrams. Guys, if you're listening to this and you haven't seen our Star Wars Episode 9 preview, even if you've seen the movie, you should probably watch it or listen to it on podcast form because it was, really entertaining, and it would be fun to see how some of the things that we talked about before were reflected in the film. But one of the things that I said is about J.J. Abrams. He's a frustrating director because this is a guy who is like super skilled. We're not talking
he's
about
very talented. Very talented.
The dude is one of the best directors in the world, period. And you have all that power and talent, and you just make all these fan servicey, mass appeal, bland copy and paste movies. It's so frustrating. And I knew he was going to do this because, I mean, the best predictor of the future is history. And we'd seen he did it with The Force Awakens. He did a pandering, nostalgia-driven, generic, formulaic film. And I'm hearing that he's done that with Episode 9. And it's so sad. And also on a minor note, for those who know, this is really a big blow for Chris Terrio's. Chris Terrio, he's a prolific writer in Hollywood.
Oh, he's been around.
He wrote Argo, won an Oscar for that. He wrote Batman v Superman, which I absolutely love. It's one of the most quotable superhero movies ever. Really deep, a lot of philosophy, like incredible dialogue. And then he wrote Episode 9, and for him to have written all these movies that have all this contention, it's really like weird. I want to see what the dialogue is like. I've heard from people who are fans of Batman v Superman that it's not as if Chris Terrio wrote the film. So maybe Batman v Superman has a lot more Zack Snyder than we actually thought.
Yeah, and I do believe that what happened with The Last Jedi actually does have more in common with BVS than it does with Justice League, simply because Justice League was ripped away from Zack after the horrific tragedy of his daughter, and it was given to another person, and then that movie got chopped up to an oblivion. But BVS was made, whether or not I love the movie, whether or not you love the movie, or Paul, it doesn't really matter. BVS was made to be a little different, and it had higher ideals. It had deeper themes, and it worked for some people and it didn't work for others. But the people that it didn't work for the love of God, they destroy it. And they not only destroy it, but they feel the need to tell somebody like you who loves it that you're stupid for liking it. That's what happened to me with Last Jedi. Now, a guy like Paul, I appreciate him because he has said he hasn't done that. But the only side note is that he felt the only differences between the BVS fans and the Last Jedi fans is the Last Jedi fans, like myself, had the blue checks on our side. BVS fans never had the blue checks on your side. You never did. So you guys were always fighting an uphill battle. A couple of quick things I'll add is I hope I was very clear. I'm glad you said what you said. I am not against anyone for liking or disliking Last Jedi. If you hate that movie, that's cool. More power to you. I don't want you. You don't have to love the movie. All I ask is that you don't tell me to hate it, and I'm not going to tell you to love it. That's it. We do your. And another thing I want to mention as well is that there is an anti-Disney, I don't know what you want to call it, but there is a chord that's running through here. There's an anti-Disney undercurrent that runs through this, whether it's deserved or not. And I think it is deserved. And you know me, I like a lot of Disney stuff, but I'm not blind to what Disney does. They market things a certain way. They push characters a certain way. They check their little boxes, right? They say, well, we have to have a character with purple hair, check, right? They have to do these little things, and then they check it, and then they force it down your throat. And then because they didn't quote unquote officially do it, they can always have plausible deniability and say that they didn't do it. So there is an anti-Disney undercurrent that I think runs through all of this, that Disney probably, hey man, you make your bed, you got to sleep in it, right? So, and that did not help anything that happened with Last Jedi, because a lot of the people that got angry at it got angry because they felt that they were having some of that stuff thrown in their face. Well, I didn't, but
I didn't either. No, but I can see, some of their concerns, as I say, with all that stuff. We're all proponents of diversity in film and entertainment and media, and we're all for that, but you have to be very, very careful and very tactful, because as I've said, it's about inclusion, not excluding anybody. So it should never be about, okay, now we're including people, so straight white men, get out of here, get kicked to the curb. It should be like, it should be everybody eats. It should be about everybody. Exactly. So whenever I see that they take the approach of clumsily, brutally attacking or
Hmm.
making white men feel less than, less than they should. That even me, I'm not a white person. It makes me
Right.
cringe because you shouldn't make anyone feel bad or less than or dispossess them
Hmm.
of things that of cultural things that they feel belong to them. There's room for everybody, and
For everyone.
we should all exist, and we're all better together. you know
Yes. Yes.
so
Absolutely, we're stronger together than we are apart. There's more that binds us, and there's more than we have in common than that separates us.
Yeah.
Uh,
And so Hollywood has to be very careful with how they, push the inclusivity agenda, which is a very noble cause. But
yes.
sometimes they just take a hack and just go crazy without grace, without finesse. So
Mhm. And I think
like,
Disney's guilty of that. You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
Not only Disney, a lot of other creators, and it's interesting. They live in a city, a town where it's the buzzwords, and it's helping movies get green lit. And
Hmm.
when the only people you talk to are those kind of people that we see on Twitter who don't even seem like real people.
Yeah.
Those people that you surround yourself with 24/7, you don't really know. I don't want to say what's going on in the real world, but you don't have a better appreciation for what's going on in other places. And
Yes.
so we'll see how things go going forward. Obviously, we're going to have a review of this. uh
Yes.
Christian is Nepal, excuse me, is actually watching it as we speak.
Yes, he is.
So
He's under
our
strict orders not to spoil it on me for a
not
couple days.
spoiler so our spoiler free review will be dropping imminently, and we'll see how this whole thing goes. I feel bad for Star Wars fans, but at the same time I don't feel bad for critics who, to be sincere, are fans, because I feel like when I see them really upset about what has happened to episode 9,
Hmm.
I remind them that this is what y'all did
Yep.
to the
Yep.
DC universe. This is
Yep.
like it's exactly what you did. Like, you bitched and you moaned and you berated and you bashed and you bullied continually until the studio was like, "We're gonna, change it," and they ended up ruining, the franchise because of it. So,
You be
Star
careful what
Wars
you wish
week,
for, right?
yeah, you get what you wish for. Karma is a bitch.
Mm-mm.
Um, Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it. I won't be able to see it this week because I'm super busy with work, but
Hmm.
I'll have a day off next week, and Chris, Toxic Doctor himself, and I will go and we'll see it. So you guys will
Nice.
be hearing from us. So what about you? When are you going to see Star Wars Episode 9?
I'm seeing it this Saturday at 5 p.m., so it's just a couple of days away.
Awesome, awesome.
And I'm pumped,
Make
man. I
sure.
got to tell you, I don't care. I'm
Yeah,
excited for this. I'm
yeah.
excited.
I'm not sure what my expectations are. I just from hearing everything, I think I've set my expectations right.
Yeah, I think so
I,
too.
yeah, I should
Yeah.
be able to enjoy it. Yeah. Okay, so let's go into our coming soon section, and we have three really cool trailers to talk about. They're three completely different types of movies,
Yeah,
and
man.
from what I can see, they're all really good movies. So let's start with Top Gun Maverick, and this one is directed by John Krasinski and stars Tom Cruise. It's obviously a sequel to the 1980s massive,
Hmm.
iconic movie, Top Gun. So, Christian, you're a fan of Top Gun. What do you think of this trailer?
Man, dude, this is Top Gun is like that's 80s, man. I don't know how much more 80s you could get than Top Gun. It's like peak Tom Cruise, right? Like grinning like an idiot and
Mhm.
smiling and getting the girl and they're on the beach and they're playing volleyball and the guys got their shirts off and they're all sweating and everybody's like macho and you got
Yep.
Val Kilmer being Val Kilmer and dude, I don't know how much cooler you can get than Top Gun. The movie's kind of dumb. Let's be
Mhm.
honest, it's kind of
Mhm.
dumb and there is some kind of silly, I don't know, they say they're flying over the Middle East or something at the end and nobody cares and a couple of planes get shot down and they bug out and that's pretty much the end of it and America, we all love it, yay, right? Okay, so that's how the movie ends. But it's just such a fun '80s flick, except for poor Goose dying. And we live in this strange era where basically you got to reboot everything, or everything's a sequel because there are no original ideas left anymore. And that seems to be what Hollywood likes to go for. I think there are a lot of things that could potentially go against this. And then I watched the trailer and I'm sold.
Mm.
I think I'm there day one. This is like we reviewed Ghostbusters trailer last week.
Mm-hmm.
This reminds me of that, where they squeezed just enough nostalgia in it with just enough like seriousness, darkness, and action, and really cool flying action and cinematography to sell me immediately and say, you know what, if I'm going to go see a Top Gun movie, that's what I want to see. And I'll let you talk a little bit more about the cinematography when you do your review, because you're definitely more into that than I am, and I think that you can come from a different place than I can. But the one thing I will mention is that in the '80s, those plane sequences always looked slightly fake. You know,
Mm.
even though they did use real footage, some of the stuff just didn't look super exciting. It was fun, but it didn't look super exciting. This stuff now looks like it's being moved to a different level.
Yeah.
Totally looks like it's being moved to a different level. And it looks like we're getting a mysterious high-speed airplane that Maverick is flying. I guess that's some kind of undercover black op, you know, a black program. And he's ordered back in. Maverick's ordered back into the Top Gun program. He's put in charge of training a group of like cocky Hornet pilots. And somebody must die during the training because he breaks
Of
up a
course.
fight with a couple pilots, right? So it's kind of similar to the whole Goose thing. But we got the guys on the beach. It looks like they're playing a game again. I don't know if it's volleyball. So he's popping his air brakes during the air training and stuff. Dude, I think this movie's going to be a lot of fun. So I want to hear what you have to say about it. But I think my wife and I are going to be seeing this on opening day.
Yeah. I'm not the biggest, original Top Gun fan. I just never got into it culturally. But I'm a massive fan of John Krasinski, the director of this film. He directed Tron Legacy, which is one of the best looking movies ever. He also directed Oblivion. Oblivion is also one of the best looking movies ever in terms of, cold, hard sci-fi. And he brings that same visual talent to bear on this film. And I think people are going to be so thrilled by how he shoots and captures, the dog fights. He's going to do new things for jet dog fights that have never been done before. I can already see in the trailer, even like the first trailer, if you remember, where the jet was going at, supersonic speeds and was like continually like breaking the sound barrier. Like, dude is really, 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 really good.
That's cool.
That's one of the most exciting things that I want to see. I think from what I can remember of the original Top Gun, the best parts of it were on the ground, and getting the personalities of the characters, But I think that the best parts of this are going to be in the air.
That would be awesome to see. That would be awesome to see, especially with today's technology and what they can do. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And the way you just explained him and the way that he can use a camera, and I'm definitely looking for. You just got me a little more excited over it now.
Thank you. Oh yeah, definitely. So let's move from Top Gun Maverick, which are really good trailer, to a completely different type of film. This one is The Woman in the Window, starring Amy Adams and Julianne Moore, and it's about a woman who has agoraphobia, and basically she's too scared to leave her apartment. Like, she's morbidly afraid of leaving her apartment, so she just stays indoors all day, every day, and things get crazier as she, tries to overcome her fear. She lets one of her neighbors into her life, and things go a little haywire from there. And that's putting it lightly. So, Christian, what do you think of the trailer for The Woman in the Window?
I have to be completely honest. This was not on my radar until I saw it come through on Twitter today. Amy Adams was trending throughout the day. So I clicked on it and was like, okay, why is she trending? And oh, holy shit, this is why she's trending. I don't know if this is an overstatement. You and I talked about this off the pod a little. She has become, over the years, one of my personal favorite actresses. I think she's one of the best in the business. I love her. And this has such a great cast with Gary Oldman and Jennifer Jason Leigh. I believe Anthony Mackie's in it. There's a couple of other folks that we know. Julianne Moore, right? She's in it
Mm,
too. Such a great cast that they've put together here. This is the kind of stuff that you expect from Fox.
mm,
And I really hope that under Disney, they said that they wanted to purchase this studio for a reason, and
mm,
that was the reason why. And I really hope that it continues under them. Very Hitchcockian,
mhm.
very Alfred Hitchcock. I read a quick synopsis. They said it's based on a psychological suspense thriller, which
Yeah.
I hope to read at some point. And it's a mind-bending drama that makes us question what's real and whether our protagonist is a reliable narrator.
Hmm.
And that's the part of it that I really enjoyed in the trailer. I love movies that make you second guess that. I think that's fantastic. And when they were playing around in the trailer, I guess at one point there was a guy that was stabbing and it went through what she was guarding herself with. And when she drops it, nobody's there. And there's no knife there either. So can you really believe what she's saying?
Mm.
Those are the kind of psychological thrillers that me personally, I really like. I was pleasantly surprised by this. I'm not sure yet if I'll go see it in theater just because of, timing and what else is going on out there. But I got to tell you, you guys and what happened in Twitter and everything absolutely put this movie on my radar. And I really now am starting to read more about it.
Mm. Yeah. This one was on my radar and has been for a very, very, very long time. I'm a
Mm,
huge fan of Amy Adams. She's probably one of my top five actresses, like working right now, maybe even of all time. And so I follow her career very, very closely. What
hmm
I will say is that it doesn't look like I expected it to look. I don't know. I expected it to be a bit darker, a bit more shadowy. It
mm,
seems like quite brightly lit, which I'm not sure how that meshes with the subject matter since it seems to be
hmm
more mysterious, kind of film. So the cinematography, I'm not sure how much I'm liking what I'm seeing in terms of the lights and choices, but I do like how you're able to see out of her apartment on into the other apartment, into the street. It's going to be very, very interesting how the director plays with those camera angles and tells visual story
hmm
in terms of what's going on with her in the story and what's going on in the outside world. I hope that he does some really interesting things because it will be a shame to have this sort of setup and not be able to, play very nicely with what's going on the inside, what's going on on the outside, her perspective from the inside, outside,
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff. One of the first things that you mentioned when you were watching the trailer is you talked about her size, and
Yeah.
I thought that was like real. That was something I noticed as well.
Yeah, it was
Um,
noticeable.
yeah, she looks like someone who doesn't leave the house.
Right. Right.
Yeah, she doesn't look especially put together in terms of having her makeup done or having her look all together. She doesn't look super healthy in terms of her skin
hmm
tone. She obviously doesn't see a lot of sunshine, so her skin is quite blotchy and a little bit starved of sunlight.
Yeah,
And
kind of pasty.
obviously,
Yep.
yeah, she's not out there working out in the gym and being very active, walking long distances, or so she's overweight, a little bit overweight, not morbidly overweight, but
No, no. Hmm
um, I think that those were very good choices, and those really brought me immediately into the mind state of who this type of person is. Amy Adams is a gorgeous woman.
She
Jesus,
really is.
right? She's
And
highly on. A lot of people talk about who they think is hot. Oh, Gal Gadot, Margot Robbie,
mhm.
Evangeline Lilly, Scarlett Johansson, and they just seem to overlook the fact that Amy Adams is drop dead gorgeous,
Beautiful.
stunning.
Beautiful.
So for her to, be brave enough, bold enough, and enough of a craftsman to completely shed her ego and just commit to the role is very impressive
Dude.
to see. Just
I,
it just adds more to my excitement. Go ahead.
I'm so happy you said that. I'm so happy you said that because not a lot of actresses, I think, in the world that we live in today, where every little thing that they do, if they have a blemish on their skin, they're picked apart. If there's a little bit of a roll, they're like, "Oh, you're fat." People
Mm-hmm,
start ripping them,
mm-hmm.
and then they body shame them from being too skinny. So for her to have the balls, if you will. I hate to say that, but it's true, to
Mhm.
do this. And also she gained weight. Remember, she got a little hefty for the fighter too.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so she's doing a little bit of a Christian Bale there. And
Mhm. Yep.
I give her a ton of credit for having the courage to do that. I'm so happy you said that because I couldn't agree with you more.
Mhm. Yeah. And the only thing about the trailer itself is that I felt the trailer showed too much.
Yeah, a
Now,
little bit.
now you can make the argument that maybe there is more.
That's right.
But
You don't know whether she's a reliable source, right? So,
exactly.
yep.
So it's possible that they didn't show, everything and that there's actually quite a lot more. But I still feel like they could still have hidden this and that could have just been even more to see.
Right.
Sometimes like trailers like these, they reek of desperation to me.
Yeah.
Almost like they're like, oh, please see our movie, please, 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 please see our movie. This is all of it. And I'm like, you got Amy Adams, you got a great movie. Hopefully, critics and influencers and whoever they get to see the movie first
Mhm.
will recognize its goodness if it is. I'm not assuming that it is, but it's Amy Adams and her track record is stellar.
Yeah.
She doesn't pick bad projects or bad directors, so hopefully, um, influencers and critics and people who publicize movies before they come out will see it and will do that job for you. You don't have to ruin your movie by showing too much of it. So that's my only thing. My only two things where, as I said,
Mhm.
the lighting choices are not what I would have expected. And also I feel it was one of those trailers that spoiled way too much.
Yeah, I could see your point on that, definitely. I think the final thing I would mention, I believe when I was reading about it after I got excited for the trailer earlier, that this was one of those movies after the merger that was in limbo, that they weren't sure Disney was going to give the green light to go forward. And
Wow.
man, I'm real glad it did. I'm glad the guys at
I'm
20th
so
Century Fox
glad.
convinced them.
Same,
Yeah.
same. So definitely looking forward to that one. And now for the big kahuna.
Woohoo!
Woo! Tenet from Christopher Nolan. Starring John David Washington. We've been waiting for this for a long time. Christopher
Mhm.
Nolan makes massive events out of his trailers. He's one of those guys who still adheres to, old school type of, marketing.
Oh
He
yeah.
doesn't just throw everything on the internet and saturate, the airwaves with material. He leaves things mysterious. And yeah, this trailer was something else. So,
Oh yeah.
Christian, go ahead and tell me what you think.
Man, I said this to you before we started recording. I would never claim to be an old school Christopher Nolan fan that knew everything about Christopher Nolan before I saw Batman Begins.
Mhm.
And he took one of my favorite superheroes and created a trilogy of movies where that man and that person could exist in our real world.
Mhm. Mhm.
And a guy later, of course, I learned who Christopher Nolan was, and a director and a creator of his stature to respect the source material like that and say, you know what, I'm going to do it my way. Wow. I mean, so I will always, because of that, have respect for him. And since then, I've discovered movies like The Prestige, and I've discovered movies like Memento,
Mhm.
and a bunch of other movies that he's made. And I'm so happy because I have really learned to love this guy. I
Mhm.
really have.
Mhm.
Interstellar was a good movie. Inception was fantastic. It's a
Mhm.
fantastic movie. It's one of my favorites still of all time. I love that movie. So when this was like a quote unquote secret project, and it was kept in the dark. Everybody was talking about how Christopher Nolan had the secret project, and you just mentioned it. You were 100% correct. The hype train was real,
Mhm.
building it up old school style, talking about it, talking it up. The trailer's dropping on Thursday, guys. It's coming
Mhm.
out. Everybody's getting all ready for it, to a point where we were like marking on our calendars that we're getting a trailer,
Yeah.
it's certain. And I have to admit the trailer did not disappoint. However, I will admit I still don't have an effing clue what's going on
Same.
in the trailer.
Same.
It's got a fantastic cast with Robert Pattinson and Michael Caine and Kenneth Branagh, who by the way looks a little bit like a Bond villain
Mhm.
in this. Excuse me. The only thing I can deduce from the trailer is a gentleman is trying. It's all about international espionage, spy stuff. He's trying to stop World War III from happening, and they're going to be doing some time travel shenanigans. There were some really cool quasi Inception moments in this where things were going forward, then they were going backwards again. Cars stopped from flipping, then all of a sudden they reformed themselves again. So again, I don't know 100% what's going on, but this guy has me hooked no matter what he freaking does. And I just am so looking forward to this. And this is a second one, just like I talked about Top Gun. This is another one that you can count me in at the very beginning from day one.
Oh yeah, Christopher Nolan he's batshit crazy. This guy. In case you didn't know, my favorite director of all time is Zack Snyder. My second favorite director is Christopher Nolan. And my third would be David Fincher, and then Guy Ritchie. But that is to say that whatever he does, I'm all in. His track record is unlike no other.
Speaks for itself.
One thing about me is that as much as, I claim to, love cinema and love dramas and love, small movies and auteur cinema, I love big, epic, massive, blockbuster films. But I love it when they're done with prestige sensibilities. And that is what Christopher Nolan specializes in. He's going to make a big blockbuster, but he's going to add a twist to it. Some very intelligent, highly intellectual concept and twist to it that just makes it, different. It's not going to be your, normal vacuum. It's not going to be like a Fast and Furious movie. It's going to add, a little bit extra to it. And I have no idea what's going on here, but my mind is already blown. I've only watched the trailer once, so I'm going to spend some time, over the next couple of days watching it about 1 million times.
Definitely.
But,
That's funny. That's funny.
It looks fantastic. The cinematography, obviously, as usual, looks drop dead gorgeous. John David Washington's out there looking like a star. Dude, absolutely, it's crazy. This is Denzel Washington's son.
Yeah.
And impressed by the fact that he's standing on his own 2 feet. Like, nobody's looking at him and saying, "Oh, this is nepotism, Hollywood nepotism." No. Because, as a matter of fact, in his story, it isn't. He actually said, he didn't tell his dad he was, going for auditions and stuff like that. And he actually, changed his name and, so he actually, got all this on his own. And it's so impressive. And also, I'm so impressed with Christopher Nolan for him casting a black lead in his movie. It's not something that he had to do. I'm sure he's doing it for diversity, sake. He's just doing it just because it's the right actor and he has a good feeling about him. But still, I'm really happy about it because a lot of times for black actors to get a break, especially with directors of this magnitude, it tends to be movies where it has to be a black person playing the role.
Right. And I agree with you, by the way. I think Nolan is not that kind of guy. He's the kind of guy that would simply say, you know what, this guy is the right guy for my role. That's it. He's going to kick ass, and I want him. That's it.
And I'm super excited for this movie. We know nothing. We don't know who the villain is. We don't even know the full scope and explanation of whatever this time travel manipulation is.
Yes.
But I do know that what we have so far sounds amazing. It is quite interesting that what they're stopping is World War III. I mean, how much more epic can it get? It almost doesn't sound real, but because it
I know. But everything about this trailer worked, man. The music, the action, it worked. It sold me on the movie. I was pre-sold anyway, but it sold me on the movie. It's great.
I can't wait to rewatch the trailer. Honestly, I'm going to spend a lot of time rewatching it, and
I'm with you. I have to see it again, and you know what? It speaks to. I'll shut up after this, but it speaks to. Christopher Nolan is one of the only directors left out there that a movie studio would toss serious money at and give him a great budget to make something that's not a franchise, not a comic book movie, not Fast and the Furious. Say, hey, man, you got an original idea? Bring it on, and here's $120 million. Whatever, go ahead, have at it. There's not a lot of directors left.
This is one of the most expensive movies ever. It's $250 million.
Ooh.
That's just
Woohoo!
unheard of for a movie that's not a superhero movie. Like what? But I can
Wow.
see it. Like we can see like a lot of like practical. Obviously, they did stuff in the editing bay to do all the time travel stuff, but
Sure.
you saw the scaling the building and all those
Yeah.
stunts. Like
Yeah.
that was practical. There was no CGI right there, and that's
Uh,
just. And obviously, there's going to be like a lot of location shoots in different countries, and that stuff costs a lot of money to move crews and equipment and have those people on payroll for a long time. So I'm just interested in seeing like what's going to be. And the film Exiles, we're going to drop our special video. It's going to be called In the Spotlight. It's for our top 10 most anticipated movies of 2020. We're going to be dropping it sometime
mhm.
between Christmas and New Year's, and this movie is definitely going to be on
Oh, I'd
on
be
some of our
shocked
list.
if it was.
Uh,
I'd be
yeah,
shocked if it
yeah,
wasn't.
it's like we have no choice. It is that movie.
We
So
bow to Christopher Nolan. We bow.
yeah. So out of all these trailers, what was your favorite, and which one had the most impact on you?
Ooh, the one that had the most impact on me was Tenet. That's the one that had the most impact on me. And part of that is because I'm biased.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite though that might be weird to you, is actually Top Gun.
Hmm.
That was my favorite one.
No, it's
Yeah.
not weird to me. Not weird to me. I can see that because
Yeah.
The Top Gun trailer is, in terms of thrills and just how it feels, the way it's cut, the Top Gun trailer actually is the best one. But the
Mhm.
thing about the Tenet trailer is just that the story, the concept is just mind blowing. Like
Oh, it's
you're
so
in
good.
for something that's going to stand the test of time. The same way like we think about Inception, and we're
Yeah.
like, wow, we know that we're potentially in for something like that. And so I think that's how I'd categorize the trailers. The woman in the window trailer was a little bit disappointing to me, to be
Hmm.
sincere. I'm still high on that movie just because of the talent involved and what
Oh
I
yeah.
can
Yeah.
be. But I think the best cut trailer was Top Gun.
Hmm.
But in terms of impacting, I think that Tenet just made me feel, ooh, some kind of way.
Yeah, I definitely agree. That's the one that, if you're gonna say impacting, yeah, that impacted me the most. But it was, for some reason, Top Gun for me was just probably the most fun and was the best trailer. But
Yep.
uh, whoo, baby, we got three good ones this week. We
Oh,
really
for
did.
sure. We really did. So there it is. Another episode of ENN. This was ENN number 15. It was a pleasure to be on with Christian. Christian, before we head out, is there anything you want to say to people? Do you want to calm people down about all this Star Wars craziness?
Yeah, look, man, just from an old school Star Wars fan, everybody chill out. Please just try to enjoy the movie. Don't go in with any preconceived notions saying
I
this is going to
agree.
stink, and try not to hate watch the movie, please. Just watch it for what it is and just enjoy Star Wars. That's it. Just have
Yeah.
fun. It's a bunch of space wizards. Have fun. Come on.
Yep. And if you don't like it, just keep it moving. Like focus on
Yeah.
things that you love in life.
Stop
Don't
with the
spend time
hate.
obsessing over hate. And for people who enjoy the movie, let them enjoy the movie. Don't ruin it for them. Don't go on the internet and on YouTube and post your hate everywhere so that it becomes such a horrible experience for them.
Oh, I couldn't agree more, Lupe. I
Ah,
couldn't agree more.
well, that wraps up this episode for us. And I have been Lupe, as usual. That's not going to change anytime soon. You can find me on Twitter at Live Love Lupe. And Christian, where can the people find you to discuss films with you?
If you want, you can hit me up on Twitter at chart6363. I'm the therapeutic guitarist.
There you go. And for the film Exiles, to you, our lovely audience, see you next time and stay exiled.